Today we're here with Arielle from the Cleveland Museum of Art, one of our favorite presenters when she does so many of her amazing presentations with our students at Connected North. So today we're going to need a piece of paper. If you have origami paper, that's great, but if not, you can make your own. Hi, Roz. One of my really super close friends is here. And Kerrigan's here and Gabrielle Spencer. It's so good to have everyone. And we're going to turn it over to Arielle, and she's going to show us how to make an origami box, but also show us some artwork that has angles in it. Because remember, math and art are so closely related, right, Arielle?
They are indeed. And I know some of you may have joined us for the last one, so we're going to look at some different things this time.
So over to you, Arielle.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Everybody, welcome. Normally I say welcome from the museum, but as you can tell, I'm not at the museum right now. I am at home in my dining room. But we're still going to get to talk about art and we're still going to make some origami together. If you have just regular paper, plain paper, that'll work just fine. And I'll show you how to make it into a square. Those of you that came last time, you remember we did that. And I will show everybody a couple things from the museum first that are kind of related to math and angles, and then we'll get started right away with some folding. I also brought a project or two to show you. Someone had asked me last time what was a hard project I had done. So I brought a couple things that I had tried to make with my daughter recently. So let me do this. Let me pull up the presentation real quick, so we can see that first. And there's a couple images in here that some of you might recognize if you were with us last time. So don't worry if there's a couple things that look familiar. For the most part, we're going to show some different artwork and talk about a different project today too. So just as a reminder too, I know you just heard this, if there are questions, please type them into the chat anytime. I will type, or I will ask you to type in answers to some of the things I'm asking, but you don't have to wait. You can ask me anytime you think of something, okay? So let me show you first really quickly, because we might have some folks on the call that were not here last time. I'll show you what the museum looks like. So where I normally teach from, my PowerPoint's going to work with me here. It looks like this. That's a picture of the museum. And usually in the springtime, that's what it looks like. Although I saw in the chat, somebody mentioned that it had snowed by you. Me too. It's been raining and snowing, so it's not very spring-like right now. But that's okay. This is how it is sometimes. So today is kind of gloomy and rainy, but normally it looks like the shot that you're seeing. So, whoops. Here is a map first of where I am at. I'm in Ohio, so I'm kind of close to Lake Erie. And then this time I also put in a map of Canada. If anybody, some of you may have already done so, but if you want to write in the chat exactly where you're at, or if you're not in Canada, if you're somewhere else, feel free to tell us where you're at. I love to see where people are connecting from. But I added this map too, because I know a lot of times people are spread out all over the place. Yeah. Oh, and I see Gabby typed in where you are. Awesome. All right. So our theme for today, of course, is origami. Oh, and this is the room that I normally teach in. It looks like a TV studio. It has a green screen. So rather than being in my dining room, normally I'm in this room. A little bit different looking. Oh, and I see Aiden says you're in North Vancouver. Awesome. So we got people all over. In Toronto from Roz. Great. Oh, yes, I just saw the comment that Mally put in that I am very close to where Lee lives, and Lee is actually one of my friends here in Cleveland. She works at the Natural History Museum, which is where my husband works. So they work together. Isn't that cool? Lots of museums in one place. All right, so today's project, instead of making ladybugs like we did last time, we are going to make an origami box. Plain white paper is fine. I know the picture I'm showing, it has blue paper. Oh, and Gabriella said you've made one before. This one, it looks more challenging than some origami projects if you've never done origami before. But it's not impossible. I think it'll be one that we can all do together. And if we have time, we can talk about some other projects that might be fun. So one of the reasons we're doing origami is to talk about how art and math are connected to each other. Oh, and I'm so glad to see all the locations that people are typing in. That's wonderful. So those of you that came last time, we asked the question of what does this word mean, origami? It is actually a Japanese word. Does anybody think either that you remember or that if you didn't join us last time, what do you think the word origami means? Does anybody want to type that into the chat? Yes, Jordan says folding. It's exactly right. It's related to folding paper. Very good. That's right, everybody. So ori means to fold, and then in Japanese, kami means paper. We actually think people have been folding paper for thousands of years. We mentioned to those of you that came last time, it may have actually started in China, paper folding, because they had paper in China about 2,000 years ago. And then the idea of it came to Japan right after because they're very close to each other. Yep, that's right, Aiden, folding paper. Such an easy way of remembering what that means. So here's where Japan is located. It's very close to China. Even though the practice might have started in China, we think of it as a Japanese art form. And it's kind of significant in a lot of ways in different parts of the world, especially in Japan, but in other places too. Some of you, I'm sure, remember this project, especially if you joined us last time. The paper crane is one of the most special origami projects. Yeah, and we talked about how it's a little bit difficult if you've never made origami before, but it's also special because people say if you can make 1,000 of these, you can have a wish granted, which is kind of a cool idea. I don't know if I'd want to make 1,000 of any origami, but some people do. And the bird, the crane that it's based on, yeah, Mally, you've made 1,000 of them before. It takes some time. Sure, I probably made 1,000 of the boxes and the ladybugs at this point. Those I've made quite a few. Yeah, the crane is kind of a symbol of peace and hope, both the real bird and the project. And I showed everybody some world record holders last time. Here's a different one for you. This was the world's biggest paper crane in 2009. They made this one in Japan. And they actually put lots of pieces of paper together to make it, kind of like the other one that we saw. Yeah, exactly. Gabby mentioned that there's the book about the girl Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. That's one of the reasons that project is so popular now, and everybody knows about that story. And if you don't, I recommend reading about Sadako. It's an amazing story. She was a little girl a long time ago who wanted to make 1,000 cranes so she could have a wish granted, but she was very, very ill and she never got to finish making her cranes. So other children and other adults, when they found out about her story, they kept making the cranes for her to honor her. And there's now monuments in Japan and other places to remember her and that story. Yeah. If we had more time, I would tell you more about it, but it's an amazing story. So here's one of the world's smallest paper cranes. I showed you a different one last time. Ooh, an origami cake. Yeah, some of the patterns are really hard to make. I'll show you in a moment when we start folding. I'll show you the ones that I tried recently that were really hard. And they were also from a dollar store, but here in the United States. Maybe it's the dollar store that's the problem. So you can use any kind of paper, everybody. You can see this fish is folded out of a dollar bill. You can use regular paper that you have laying around the house, just something that's thin. Oh, and Rael Allen says she's making a crane right now. Yeah, the crane is a fun one. We probably won't have time to do the crane together today, but I definitely recommend that you try it. And it's really easy to find instructions online. I put this picture in for everybody too. This is actually a scene from the airport here in Cleveland. And what you're looking at is as if you were riding down an escalator in the airport to go to the lower level into one of the terminals. And those things that look like giant paper airplanes are actually great big sculptures. So they're not really made of paper, but they look like a newspaper, paper airplane, and one made of notebook paper. I don't actually remember what they're built out of. I want to say it's probably metal and maybe some other material on the outside, but they're quite big. They look like paper airplanes though. And here's a couple fancy projects that a professional artist or characters from Lord of the Rings. Can you imagine folding paper to make something like that? Those are pretty complex. So when we think about how we use math, we mentioned this last time. You can talk about angles, you can talk about shapes, you can talk about symmetry, and we're definitely going to do a lot of symmetrical steps in this project today. I know. I saw Gabby's comment. Wow, some of them are so amazing. Ours won't be quite as fancy as those characters you just saw. But I wanted to show you an object or two from the museum that relates to what we're doing today. Last time we looked at an artwork from the Renaissance by the artist Albert Dürer, and it was a really detailed print. The works I have for you this time are a little bit more simple, but they still have angles and shapes. One of them is by an artist named Dorothea Rockburn, and this is actually made of folded paper. So it's folded paper that's kind of mounted together. It's a very simple project and really mainly just white paper. But I like this piece, not only because it's actually using paper since we're doing that today, but I like the title of it. The name is White Mozart, which you can see over on the left-hand side. Does anybody know who Mozart was? Have you ever heard that name? If you do, you can type it into the chat. I thought it was kind of interesting because this work, no, Emma's not sure. A musician, says Gabrielle. Very good. A very famous one a long time ago. Someone famous for classical music. Yeah. So some people think that not only is there a lot of connection between art and math, but visual art, like pictures or sculptures, but there's also a lot of connections between math and music. And both the artworks I'm showing you, yes, very good, Roz, a composer. A lot of people see a lot of connections between those people that are really amazing at writing music and playing music, that they also seem to really understand math. And I think a lot of this also ties into visual art. So both of the works that I'm showing you have something musical about them. I don't know why she named this one White Mozart. Do you think that maybe when she listened to his music, maybe she thought of shapes made of paper? I'm just guessing. I don't really know for sure. But maybe the way she arranged them, it seemed like a musical composition to her. The other one is a little bit different, but it has a musical reference. Here's the other. Is it? These from the 20th century. That old. This is by an artist named Mondrian, and he is famous for works like this. This is a painting, so it's not folded paper, but he used a lot of straight lines, both vertical and horizontal lines. And he usually only used black, white, and the primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue. He thought everything in the world could be reduced to very simple elements, straight lines, simple geometric shapes. So even something organic like a tree, like the plant behind me, or a landscape could be reduced to all these things. Like trees could become straight lines. The horizon line could become a straight line. Maybe the sun in the sky becomes a square or a rectangle, or clouds become rectangles. So he thought everything could have these very simple elements. But he often thought of music when he made a lot of his works. And he was, I think, around this time starting to really be interested in jazz music. So some people say when you listen to music, that some people picture different shapes and colors and things like that. So maybe these are the colors that he saw when he listened to music. I don't know for sure, but it also reminds me of things like windows and buildings. It could be anything that your imagination thinks of. So we're going to start folding, and I'm going to make sure my phone is turned on so I can share my paper that I'm folding with you. Does anybody have a question while I get the phone set up? Any questions right now? So far, so good. Nope. That's okay.
They're good, Arielle, I think.
All right. Well, here, I'm going to go over to my QuickTime player, and I'll be able to share my paper with you. But I'm going to have to reorient my camera, so give me a second here. It likes to go back to the vertical format. I want it to be this way. There we go. So I've got my phone hooked up as my extra camera, which makes this a lot easier. All right. Oh, and by the way, here, let me show you these first. These are a couple of Origami Projects, and I'll zoom in. I made these with my daughter just a couple weeks ago. I had mentioned it to some of you last time. Some people were asking, what are some of the hardest things you've ever made? These were from a dollar store origami kit, and this was supposed to be a mermaid. And I'll tell you, this was really, really hard to fold. They had the pictures all printed on the paper, and it started as a square, but the instructions for folding this were ridiculously hard. And I don't know where the body part is. I don't think we finished the fishtail for the mermaid, but that's her hair, and there's her face. Even with the lines on it and the pictures, it was still really hard. My husband and I both struggled. And then this was to go with the mermaid. This is a seahorse. And you could do something like this even with plain paper and just decorate it when you're done. But I don't know if I recommend either of these projects. They were incredibly hard. Thanks, Mally. I don't know if they turned out amazing, but the idea of it was pretty cool. So nevertheless, we're going to make our boxes. So the first thing we want to do, everybody, is if your paper is a rectangle, I want to show everybody really quickly in case you haven't done this before. I know some of you already have. Here is how to turn your paper into a square. Things here to give myself a little more room. So if your paper is a rectangle, we want to take one corner, fold it down, very carefully line it up before you crease the paper, like this. And then when you crease it, this whole area now will be a square when we open it up, but we're going to cut this part off, or you can fold it and rip it. If you don't have scissors available, I recommend folding it a couple directions before you rip that part off. So here, I'll do mine so you can see. So I'm going to crease it this way, use my fingernail on it. And then I'm going to actually unfold it and flip it over and fold it the other way. If you have scissors, obviously scissors would make a nice clean cut, so feel free to use those, but I'll rip this one so everybody can see. If you really crease this with your fingernail, it should be pretty easy to rip that extra piece off. And it's okay if it's not perfectly smooth. If you get a little fuzzy edge there, don't worry about that. You can always trim that up. You can see mine's doing that a little bit. Let's fold it one more time. There we go. As close to a smooth edge as you can get. Okay. Then when you open this up, you have your square. See if I can straighten this out a little bit. There we go. The matter of my paper and my camera being lined up with each other. So what we're going to do for this one, some of you remember when we did the ladybugs, we started by actually folding this into a triangle. For this project, we're not going to do that. We are going to start by folding the top edge to the bottom, so more like a rectangle. But this project has a lot of folding and unfolding. So make sure that you do the step, and then if it needs to be unfolded, you do that afterwards. And in the chat, everybody, if I go too fast or you need to see, yes, Gabby, I can wait a second. If anyone's still working on making your paper a square, absolutely. If anybody else needs a moment, we can pause here for a second. The project that this might remind some of you of, if you've ever made one of those fortune tellers, I think we mentioned those last time and there was a picture of it in the PowerPoint. The beginning steps of this are kind of similar to that. See if I can zoom this in a tiny bit. Maybe. That's pretty good. Oh, and you made one, yes. Yes, some people do call them by other names. Fortune teller is not bad though. We can call it that. All right. So I'll do this step again, and hopefully everybody is ready to go. If you need another moment though, let me know. We want to take the top edge, straighten that out a little bit. That'll help. There we go. Top edge to the bottom edge. Then you open it back up. And we're going to do the same thing side to side. Up before you fold, because that'll make it a much neater fold. Like this. Okay, so crease it, then open. And technically now you've got a few different lines on here because we did that diagonal fold at the beginning, which there'll be more folds like that later, but the folds that we just created are the vertical and the horizontal line that you see on here. Okay. The nice thing about these lines is they intersect right in the middle of our paper. And I apologize, my camera turned off again. The only problem with the iPhone is it likes to turn off after a little while. There we go. Gotta keep touching the screen so it doesn't turn off. I have to reset it. Oh yes, if you are using actual origami paper, you should start with the white side up. I should have mentioned that, I apologize. Because as we're doing the folding, then you want to be able to see the colorful paper. Some origami paper is printed on both sides too. In that case, it doesn't really matter which one, but the color that you want the box to be should be on the bottom right now. Yeah, thanks for asking that, Roz. I should have mentioned that. All right, so does anyone know, this is a math word for everybody, what do you call lines where you have a vertical and a horizontal like this? And when they intersect, they make right angles. Does anyone know what kind of lines these are in math? There's a special name for it. I'll give you a hint. The name of it, it starts with a P. I think you've heard the name before. Perpendicular, that's right. This project actually has perpendicular lines, and we're going to see some parallel lines in a little bit too. So you are exactly right. These are perpendicular lines, and we're going to use these for our next step. We're going to take each corner now of our square, and we're going to carefully fold, and I could actually use my scissors to trim that little extra piece off. Smooth that out a little. There we go. We're going to fold each corner into the middle of the perpendicular lines like this. So you're almost making a new square, but it's a little smaller. If you're using origami paper, now you can see the color of the paper because you're folding it in. So now the color will be visible. You can also, after that's folded, you can rotate your paper a little bit like this. So you've got a flat edge at the top again. And it sort of looks like a square envelope, like you're mailing somebody a letter in the mail. Depending on which way you turned your paper, like I have that crease running across here from when I originally made this into a square. If you turned it this way, you might have a crease running down. That's okay. Either way is fine right now. All right, so for the next part, I'm gonna kind of hold this down so that these triangles that I folded are not popping up so much, the way they sort of pop off the table. I'm gonna use one hand to hold everything flat, and I'm gonna use my other hand, my right hand, or it can be your left, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm gonna use this one to carefully curl this a little bit, and I'm going to bend it slowly, but not to the bottom. I'm going to bend it so that it meets the middle of the paper. I'm only folding it halfway down. It looks a little funny when you first try it, but once you smooth it out, you have a rectangle like this. let me show that again in case it wasn't clear or you couldn't see it. I took the top edge, and I'm using one hand to keep everything in place, but I'm using this one to bend the top down, and it should line up right in the center. So it makes a skinny rectangle. Yes, Josh was asking if I can wait. Absolutely. Let me know if you want to see that step again. I can unfold. Yes, okay. So here was where we were. We had a square, but it has these flaps, and the flaps of the envelope, or what looks like an envelope, I'm kind of holding them down because otherwise they sort of pop up a little. I don't want them to get in my way. I'm trying to move my hands so you can see the whole thing. So I used one of my hands to hold all the corners together in the middle. And then I'm taking my other hand to fold the top edge, but I sort of rolled it a little first before I made that crease. So I'm rolling it down and trying to line it up right in the middle of the perpendicular line. So kind of check, does it look like it's straight? Does it look like it's pretty even? And then crease. Okay. We are going to do the same thing to the bottom. And you might still need to hold these little flaps down, but it's probably a little more steady now because you folded one part already. So you can still kind of roll the paper like this. And then let me know if anybody wants to see this again or back it up for a minute, I can. When I do the bottom, I meet the top. So I end up with two rectangles here that touch, like a sandwich. Okay. So if I open it up where you can see it, this one was the bottom. I kind of rolled it up here and then folded. Always remember to kind of go over that fold too, so it's nice and sharp. You can use your finger or your fingernail. And that's where the top is. But it should look like this. Is everybody doing okay? And don't be shy if you want to write in the chat, I need a minute, or slow down, or you can say, no, I'm fine. Whatever you like. Okay. So these two folds that we just did, yeah, I got to reset my iPhone so it doesn't turn the screen off so often. I'm sorry about that, everybody. Hold on. There we go. One of those settings you don't think about it until you need it to stay on for a long time. So it should look like this right now. Okay. We are going to undo the folds that we just did. So you can open the top back up and the bottom. And if you did both of them, you should have what looks like two parallel lines that run across. We're actually going to open it up even a little more. So I'm going to zoom out a bit. So we have a little more room. Okay. It won't be flat anymore. See how this looks like it has wings on it now? Like an envelope that has wings. It doesn't want to lay flat on the table. That's okay. I'm going to actually open up the top corner now, like I'm opening a letter. I might zoom this back out even a little further because we want to have room to open the bottom like this. Okay. If you did it correctly, you should see a lot of parallel lines. All these stripes that you see, that's from all the layers of paper that were folded. If I let go, it'll look like this. But I'm using one of my hands right now to hold it so you can see the whole shape of it. I'm not going to open these sides yet. Sides. For this part, I also like to use a hand to hold it down so that I can fold more easily. So I'm going to take, this time I'll take my right hand, kind of lay it on top, and especially right here where the corners are, I'm going to hold everything down. And I'm going to use my left hand to sort of curl the paper a little bit first so it's bending the right way. just kind of rolling it. And I'm going to carefully line it up. I'll move my finger out of the way at the last minute here. Line it up so that I have a nice straight line here in the middle, and then fold it. Once you know it's in the right place. It's a little bit neater if you do it that way. Okay. I'll open it up so you can see that again. Here's a replay. Okay, this is where we were. I put one finger in the middle and I kind of use this hand to hold the paper flat. And I took the left edge, curled it around so that it meets to right to the center. Then I creased it. This is where, if you do have origami paper, it's probably easier to see what you're doing because it's not white on white. Like if this was colorful, we would see both the white and the color, and it looks a lot nicer. But it'll work either way. Plain paper is fine. You should probably switch hands. One finger to hold the triangle down. And then I'm going to use my right hand carefully. Sort of, the curling part is just to get it all to smooth out for you. Then when you line this up, you'll have a nice long skinny shape. This. Yeah, those of you that are using origami paper, I'm sure it's a little easier to see. Mine might be a little tough to see right now because it's all white on white. Like if this was origami paper, this part would be colorful, but the two squares at the top and the bottom would be white. Did everybody get yours to look like this? It sort of looks like a long necktie. Right, I see some yeses, some yups. Awesome. And yes, I can go back to here. Did you get to this point? Anybody that needs to go back for a moment? Is this far enough back, or do you want me to go back more? So we were, okay. So the way that we got to this shape, let me review really quickly. We had folded all the corners in. That was at the very beginning. And then we carefully folded down top and the bottom, sort of made it like a sandwich, okay? And then we open that back up again. Just like an instant replay here for a moment. And then we open the letter, the top corner. We open the bottom. Okay. And then the part where it starts to get a little trickier is here. I'm kind of holding this all down, but it looks the same on either side. The left side came into the middle. And then I switched hands. I carefully folded in the right side like this. So you end up with what looks like a long skinny tube, or some people say it looks like a burrito or a necktie. I suppose it depends if you're hungry, it's going to start to look like food. Yeah. All right. I'm actually going to zoom in here on this part for a minute because I want to show everybody up close what we're going to do. So if you have origami paper, this will be a different color on either side, and then this part might be white. We are going to actually fold along this edge of the square or diamond. And I'm going to you don't need to draw in it. I'm just going to highlight mine a little bit for you. See how there's a line here, but it actually goes all the way down. That's one of the lines. That's a diagonal. And there's actually a complementary diagonal that goes this way, like an X. Both of those are lines that we will use for folding. You don't have to draw on yours. I'm just showing you where mine is. But when I fold on one of them, it makes the shape kind of strange. So here's the smooth one, and then I'll do the dotted one. So you fold it at a diagonal. This. I'll zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Or zoom in. So that is the first one, but I'm going to undo it. And then I'm going to fold the other one. This is where it gets a little more tricky on this project. It's not hard, but you do have to do all the steps. And I know the unfolding is annoying, but it's important. The reason they have you fold things and open them is you're making creases that you're going to use later. So that one is the one that goes to the left. Here's the one that went to the right, like a little sign, like an arrow. Make sure you do both. And then we're going to actually do that to the other end. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you did this one first, if you went left first, that's fine. You can do left and then right, or you could do right and then left. Either one, either order is just fine.
Okay, it looks like we need just a little bit of time to catch up from Elena.
That was like my next question.
Yeah. I think they might need to go back a little bit. Thanks, because it is tricky.
This one is a harder project than we did last time. It is for sure. So you want to go back further than this. Oops. No, I can. No, this is far enough back. Okay, so we've got this here. We'll zoom in a little. Okay, so all I did is I was following the edge of the square. You can start with this edge or the other one, the bottom edges. So it kind of makes an X. That's why I drew on it with my pencil. So for the first one, when I fold it, I sometimes put all my fingers right along that line so I know where I want to push the paper. Oh, and Elena is saying maybe even back up a little bit more. Okay, let me do that first before we do that step again. Okay, so let's reverse for a moment. We had our letter opened up like this. Okay. So we opened up the top corner, and the bottom had been folded, so we opened that up. We did not open up the sides though. I left those triangles in, and I took the left edge to the middle like this. Then I took the right edge and folded that to the middle like that. So it was nice and long and skinny. Yeah, if you had actual origami paper, there might be color on this part. No, this is not colorful, this is just a pencil. So that part might look different. The little square at the top and the bottom might be white. That's okay. Then I went to the top and I zoomed in a little bit, and I can do that again if it's easier to see. Touch. Okay. I was following this line right here. Make it darker because I don't know if pencil shows up the best on camera here. The only reason I'm drawing on them, everybody, is just so you see what I'm doing. You don't have to draw on yours, but it's like a square sitting on the top, and I'm extending the line of this edge all the way down. So when I fold it, it almost ends up like a little sign or an arrow that points to the right. But I don't leave it folded. So I fold it, I give it a nice crease, and then I open it back up. Then I do the other one so that it folds to the left. But if you accidentally did the left one first, that's fine. Just make sure you do both. Okay. In origami, a lot of these projects are symmetrical. So if we did it to this end, we need to do the same thing down here. What I recommend, just to make your life easier, instead of trying to do it upside down, spin the whole thing around. So now the bottom is at the top, and just do it again. I think that makes it a lot easier than trying to picture how it looks reversed. So you just do the same. And if it is helpful, you could take a pencil if you have one or a pen. You could highlight that line if you feel like it. You don't need to though. There's the other one. It's just like an X. So you fold one to the right. It's sort of like now the little triangle's pointing off to the side. open, and now do one to the left. I promise those folds are important. I know it seems like they're not if you're undoing them. And we're going to open this up and turn it into a box. Okay. I'm actually going to turn my project because I think it'll fit on the screen better if I zoom out a little too. I'm going to turn this to the side now so you can see the whole thing. Yeah, if you've done one before, you can get to the point where you can definitely make a bunch of these. Actually, before I have this sideways, let me show you one thing. With this vertically, it might be a little easier. You're going to open up the left side, and this is going to make one of the walls. There's a little triangle here. You want to push that down, but let the wall stand up. This. Okay, and it looks like there's a request to go back for a second. All I did was I repeated what I did on this end. I repeated it up here. I folded the arrow that goes to the right. And then I folded to the left. So it was the same steps that I did down here, but I had spun it around. And if you do left first, that's fine. Just make sure you fold it nicely. And then do the other one. Left first or right first, it does not matter. Just crease it, open it. Okay. So now that both of these ends are done, we're going to pull open one of the walls. So this is the side here. I'm going to stand it up. I'm not going to flatten it down again. I want it to stand up straight. The little triangle, this little flap, that's going to be part of the bottom of the box. Other wall will do the same thing. And let me show you this from a different point of view. I've got two walls now. See? Two walls that stand up like this. Sort of looks like a boat almost. Okay. But the tricky part, everybody, is not this. The tricky part is getting these sides to go in. Okay. So that's what we're going to do to finish this. And then I can do it again if anybody needs to go back a little bit and see more. I know we're about out of time, aren't we?
We're okay, Arielle. We can go a couple more minutes to get it. Yeah, we've got time.
We want the kids to finish.
Yeah. Well, let's at least get the sides done and see if anybody wants me to go back again. So at this point, you've got two little walls that stand up, but here's the part that's a little tricky. Let me zoom in. Okay. I've got too many things on this table. So to make these other sides, here's what you're going to do. I like to put one hand in the bottom of the box and kind of hold it on the table. And then I'm going to grab one of these corners and try to stand it up. What should happen is these little triangle pieces should sort of tuck in to the box. I'll show you from a different view here. As you stand this up, these collapse, fit together, so that you're, from this view, you're making another wall. See how the sides kind of are like accordion folding together? Then you want to take this, wrap it around the wall. You kind of need both hands. You tuck that in. That makes your third wall. I'll show this again because I think people might want to see this more than one time, especially if the picture got fuzzy at any point. So here's the last wall, and then I'll open it and do it again. So this one, when I stand it up, See how these little triangles kind of tuck in? They almost become hidden because they fold together like that. You should be able to take this, carefully wrap it into the box. It kind of wraps around and that triangle fits right in the bottom with the other ones. And if this doesn't seem like it wants to stay, sometimes I'll crease that edge a little more. And that keeps the triangles down. In worst case scenario, you could put a little tape in there to hold those down, but it should stay. Oh, I see Charlotte said she finished. Gabriella did. But let me show those last two parts again for anybody that needs it. That's the part that is the hardest part, I would say, getting those two. If you did all the steps, it will work. You just got to practice it sometimes. Okay, so we were here. Do over. You don't mean the whole thing, do you? Is from here good, Elena, if I start here? The walls, is that a good spot to start? Hopefully. Okay, so what we did when we got to this point, oh, and other people had gotten it, that's fantastic. We stood these walls up like so. Okay. So now I have two walls, only two. So I've got a little boat or bridge. Trying not to move it so fast because then I know it's hard to see. Then I turned it this direction just so it would fit on screen a little more easily. And holding it down on the table, you can use one hand to stand the sides up one at a time. I'll show you how it looks from each view. On the inside, it will look like this. Whoops. Hold on to it. There we go. And on the back, it looks like this. Okay, and you carefully take that wall, wrap it around, and you tuck that triangle inside the box. Oh, Emma says she's done. Great. A little closer here. And the last one, you stand it up carefully, and you can see where those little triangles are kind of tucking in. You wrap this around for the final part of the box, and that last triangle should end up right at the bottom with the other ones. And your box, if you use colorful paper, it will now all be that color. Yes, and Gabriella, you can absolutely make a lid. If you make more than one, you can put one on top of the other, and you'll have a box with a lid. You can make them different sizes too.
That's what I was going to ask. Do the lid and the bottom need to be different sizes?
Not necessarily. If they're exactly the same size, they will fit together because it's paper and it's kind of flexible, but you can make them different sizes if you want a little box that will fit inside of your bigger box.
That would be so fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other thing they could do is decorate it or put something in it, maybe put a ribbon on it. That's so cool, Arielle.
Yeah, I know it's too late. We just had Mother's Day yesterday, but you could still make a present for somebody for another day in here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you all in Canada, is Mother's Day celebrated at the same time as it is in the US, or is it celebrated at a different time?
Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I know in parts of Europe they have different days for Mother's Day and some of the other holidays too.
they do. And so there's my box. I think like I'm like you guys, I don't have any origami paper. Normally I have lots, but I don't have any. And they didn't have any at the dollar store when I went. So being able to use something that you have available or even in the recycling, you could use a flyer. If there's some of those, you could use a piece of a page from a magazine and make it into a square, and it would give you some really nice designs. Or just see what's in the recycling and see what you can use. She's going to use it as a table in her dollhouse. Charlotte, isn't that awesome? And Arielle, you have origami paper. You're all the way up in Iqaluit. Wow.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, because I couldn't find any.
I know, I was going to try to order some, but I thought with the short notice, I probably wouldn't get it in. So.
Yeah. So the other thing, boys and girls, is you can go back and watch the recording. It should be online in a couple of days, maybe 3 days. It's taking about 3 or 4 days to get them online. And you can take a look at the recording. But what I did find at the beginning was there are some books about tobacco. As Arielle mentioned, this is the novel, the junior novel for Sadako. It's called Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. And it is this, it's a longer story of Sadako. And at the end, it shows you how to make a paper crane. So that's super cool. There is another storybook, a picture book about Sadako. It's a longer picture book. I couldn't find it, so I'm wondering if I left it somewhere. And then I found this other book that's really nice. You could maybe look up online, called Peace Crane. And it's about a little girl who lives in the United States. And she knows the story about Sadako. And I believe there are instructions in here too. But they are online, and I will put, I haven't done it yet, I will put instructions to a few of the projects that we've talked about. And maybe Arielle we can come up with another idea, because this is a really great way to start the week, learning math. And I'll talk to Arielle.
Evan and I put ours together, Arielle, and we made a box.
Perfect.
So that was pretty handy. So that gives us some ideas for Christmas. If you're looking for a box, now you know how to make your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say, if you are poking around also on our website, everybody, there are, if I go back to the PowerPoint really quickly, if you look up this lesson on our website, I don't know if this was already shared, but we do have a teacher kit that goes with this lesson that has the instructions for this project and the Ladybug. And I think there are some links on there to other resources online. So if anybody wants to check that out. Oh, and here, just for fun, here's somebody's car decorated to look like the Mondrian painting. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, the website, everyone, is clevelandart.org. And if you have questions that come up, you can also email us here at dl@clevelandart.org too. But you can find, there are tons of great websites that have really simple origami instructions. And I would recommend going on YouTube to watch people fold some of the projects, because it's kind of nice to see people do the steps and not just the paper instructions.
And I'll just show you. This is what the crane looks like from a normal 6 by, I guess it would be an 8.5 by 8.5 or 6 by 6. This is what we made these for Mother's Day one year in my class. And it's just made out of it is lovely. So that's what what one of the piece cranes look like. And it was really cool, yeah. So that's what they look like, and I'll put the instructions on for those on the website. Mally, are you a teacher? Well, yes, honey, I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 35 years, but now I'm a teacher at Connected North. So in my old life, I used to be a teacher, but in my new life, this is a really fun way to teach. And Arielle teaches like this every day. She's really lucky.
It is kind of fun because you get to see different people from all over. Like I love getting to work with people that are, you know, here in Cleveland and Ohio, but it's so fun to be able to talk to people in other countries and other parts of the world. It really is awesome.
And Katie's a teacher, and Katie's a teacher too. So we're all teachers.
Yeah, just different kinds of teachers.
Different kinds of teachers. So boys and girls, see you at Dolphins at 1:30 Eastern. Arielle, your daughter might like that because it's story time with dolphins and learning about facts about dolphins if you go to the website. So we have dolphins, and then we have a fitness workout with Michael Solomon at the end of the day. So we'll see you guys later and tomorrow, and we'll maybe see you tomorrow too. So, and we'd love to see your boxes, different shapes. Thanks, guys.